The weeks following the stormy confrontation in the mansion were heavy with unease. The house, once lively with small laughter and quiet hums of routine, had grown tense. Every glance, every movement seemed measured, as though the walls themselves held their breath. Ada went about her chores with the same diligence, but she felt the weight of judgment pressing in from every direction. Even the staff treated her differently now, whispering behind closed doors and casting curious eyes when she passed. She kept her head down, her hands busy, but inside a quiet storm brewed, a mixture of fear, hope, and determination. Tunde noticed the subtle shifts immediately. The warmth that had once filled the mansion seemed dimmer, and Ada's usual lightness felt tinged with anxiety. One evening, he returned from work to find her sitting quietly on the balcony, gazing at the shimmering lights of Lagos. The city stretched endlessly before them, alive, chaotic, and indifferent. "Ada," he called softly, approaching her. She turned, her eyes reflecting the city's glow and a trace of unshed tears. "Sir?" she said, her voice barely audible. He crouched slightly, meeting her gaze. "Are you all right?" She nodded quickly. "I'm fine. Just thinking." He hesitated, then said, "You do not deserve this. All the whispers, all the disapproval, none of it is your fault." Ada's lips trembled as a tear finally slipped free. "I only want to do my work, to make a home here, and make you proud. But it feels like nothing I do is enough." The tension reached its peak when Mama Ijeoma came to Lagos, having been contacted by Nkechi under the guise of concern. Ada's mother arrived in her best wrapper, carrying both worry and faith in her eyes. She had left Otucho at dawn, traveling on buses and okadas to reach the mansion, praying that her daughter would be safe. Nkechi received her with calculated politeness, her smile tight and guarded. "Welcome, madam," she said, guiding Mama Ijeoma into the sitting room. "I wanted to speak with you about Adaze's adjustment to city life." Mama Ijeoma's voice trembled slightly. "Adjustment? My daughter is working honestly, ma. Is there a problem?" Nkechi's eyes narrowed. "You must understand, madam, this is Lagos. Your daughter is not used to this life. She must be guided and boundaries maintained." Tunde arrived mid-conversation, having sensed the tension as soon as he entered the driveway. The sight of his sister speaking sharply to his mother, his Ada sitting quietly in the background, stirred a fire in him that had been smoldering for weeks. "Enough," he said, his voice firm, echoing through the spacious room. "Ada has done nothing wrong. You insult her because she is from a small village? She has more grace, humility, and character than most people I know. I will not tolerate prejudice in my house." Ada's heart leapt at his words, but she also felt the weight of the confrontation. Nkechi's face flushed with fury. "So, you admit it? You love her?" Tunde's jaw tightened, and he stepped closer to Ada, his hand brushing against hers. "Yes," he said, slowly, "I love her. I do not care what anyone thinks. Her honesty, her courage, her heart, these are worth more than all the status in the world." Ada blinked rapidly, her chest tight with disbelief and joy. Mama Ijeoma clasped her hands together, whispering prayers under her breath. Nkechi stormed out, her heels clicking loudly against the marble floor, leaving a charged silence behind. In the days that followed, the mansion felt transformed. The confrontation had cleared the air, though it had also left its mark. Ada felt a new confidence growing inside her, fueled by Tunde's unwavering support. She realized that her fear of being unworthy was not rooted in truth, but in the prejudices of others. She began to take more initiative in her work, adding small touches that made the house feel warmer, arranging flowers with artistic care, creating simple but delicious meals, and helping organize social events for Tunde's colleagues. Each act of diligence, each small success reinforced her belief in herself and her place in this new world. Tunde, meanwhile, found his feelings growing deeper every day. He admired Ada not just for her beauty or charm, but for her strength, her humility, and the way she had maintained her integrity in the face of judgment. One afternoon, as they worked together in the kitchen preparing dinner, he paused and looked at her carefully. "Ada," he said, "do you know how much you've changed this house? How much you've changed me?" She looked up, startled by the intensity in his voice. I just do what I can, sir," she replied softly. "It is easy when I'm learning from someone who sees me for who I am." He smiled faintly, the tension in his shoulders easing. "No, Ada, it is not easy. It is rare, and I'm grateful." But even as they grew closer, the shadows of outside judgment lingered. Lagos was a city of whispers, and the story of the man from Lekki falling for his maid had traveled far beyond the mansion walls. Some colleagues laughed behind closed doors. Others shook their heads in disbelief, and socialites questioned Tunde's taste. Yet he ignored the chatter, focusing only on what truly mattered. The woman beside him, steadfast and true. One particularly stormy night, when lightning flashed across the lagoon, Tunde and Ada stood together on the balcony. The wind whipped their clothes and the rain drenched them, but neither moved. "I fear nothing," he said quietly, his voice low over the patter of rain. "Not the city, not my family, not society. Only you." Her heart raced, tears mixing with raindrops on her cheeks. "But what about them?" she whispered. "What about the judgment, the whispers?" He turned to her, cupping her face gently. "Let them talk. Let them whisper. Love is not for them to understand. It is ours." The days that followed were a mixture of relief and continued vigilance. Ada felt a newfound sense of purpose, knowing she had Tunde's unwavering support. Mama Ijeoma, reassured that her daughter was safe and valued, began to relax, offering guidance and wisdom drawn from years of life in Otucho. Even Nkechi, though distant, began to see cracks in her own stubborn pride. She watched from afar as Ada continued to work diligently, interact politely, and uphold a dignity that could not be ignored. Slowly, respect began to take root, though Nkechi's approval would take longer to earn fully. In the quiet moments, Ada and Tunde's relationship flourished. They shared laughter over minor mistakes, exchanged stories of their childhoods, and discovered a deep mutual respect that went beyond the roles of employer and employee. Each day strengthened the bond between them, even as external pressures threatened to intrude. Lagos, with all its chaos and beauty, seemed to watch silently. A city of countless lives moving around the mansion while a quiet love grew stronger within it. Finally, one evening, after a long week, Tunde took Ada's hand and led her to the garden. The moonlight reflected off the polished leaves and the shimmering water of the fountain. "Ada," he said, voice steady, eyes serious, "I want the world to know, or at least to see, how important you are to me. I am proud of you. I admire you. And I love you." Ada's breath caught. "Sir, I don't know what to say." He smiled softly. "Then say nothing. Just feel it. And in that moment, the mansion felt lighter, the tension easing, and a quiet promise of happiness began to root. The fire of conflict had burned brightly, but it had also revealed truth. Truth that would guide them through the whispers, the shadows, and the judgments of the world outside. Ada realized that courage and honesty were not only her weapons, they were her strength. And Tunde knew that love, when honest and unwavering, could overcome every obstacle. The morning sun rose gently over Lekki, spilling golden light across the mansion and illuminating the garden where Ada had spent countless hours tidying, arranging flowers, and quietly dreaming. Lagos had awoken with its usual roar, cars honking, street vendors calling, and children's laughter echoing from alleyways. But inside the mansion, there was a calm that had not been felt for months. The storm of judgment, whispers, and tension had passed, leaving only clarity, honesty, and the warmth of love. Ada stood by the window, taking a deep breath. For the first time, she felt she truly belonged. The months that followed were marked by subtle transformations. Tunde encouraged Ada to pursue evening classes, studying catering, home management, and even basic business skills. She excelled, fueled by a mix of determination and curiosity, discovering strengths she had never known. Her confidence grew alongside her skills, and she became a respected presence not only within the mansion, but also among the staff and friends who once doubted her. Even Nkechi, though still proud and cautious, began to notice the changes. She observed Ada handle challenges with grace, calm, and intelligence, qualities that no wealth, influence, or social standing could buy. Slowly, she softened, realizing that her brother had found something far more valuable than social approval. He had found a partner of unwavering character. Tunde too evolved in this period. He had always been successful, organized, and admired, but Ada's influence brought him something far deeper. He learned patience in quiet moments, humility in small gestures, and a profound joy in seeing another person flourish. Their love, once tentative and secretive, became a steady force, anchoring them against the tide of societal expectations. The mansion, once a symbol of isolation and rigid order, transformed into a home filled with warmth, laughter, and shared dreams. One sunny afternoon, Nkechi arrived, her expression unreadable. Ada, carrying a tray of freshly baked pastries, greeted her politely. Nkechi's lips pressed into a thin smile. "Adeze," she said softly, "I want to apologize for everything. I judged you unfairly. I see now the strength and grace you bring to this house and to Tunde's life." Ada, taken aback, felt a tear slip down her cheek. "Thank you, Ma. That means a lot." Nkechi nodded, her eyes lingering on Ada with what could almost be called respect. It was a small but significant victory, an acknowledgement that love, character, and determination could transcend class, prejudice, and fear. A few months later, Ada completed her evening courses, standing proudly on graduation day in a simple yet elegant dress. Tunde watched her from the crowd, his heart swelling with admiration. He had promised to stand by her, and now he watched her as she flourished, proof that opportunity, hard work, and integrity could transform a life. After the ceremony, he led her to the mansion's garden, where soft sunlight glinted off the fountain's rippling water. He knelt, taking her hand in his. "Adiza," he said, voice steady, eyes shining, "you have changed my life. You've shown me love, patience, and courage in ways I never imagined. Will you marry me?" Ada gasped, her hands trembling. Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. "Yes, yes, I will." Mama Ijeoma, who had come to witness the moment, wept openly, lifting her hands to the sky in gratitude. Nkechi clapped first, a laugh escaping her lips through tears. The staff and neighbors celebrated quietly, understanding that this was more than a wedding. It was the triumph of honesty, courage, and true love over prejudice, fear, and judgment. The wedding itself was simple, but beautiful. Held in the mansion garden,
with flowers Ada had arranged herself. Friends, family, and even skeptical colleagues attended, witnessing the genuine bond between two people who had defied expectations and societal norms. Tunde and Ada exchanged vows under the warm Lagos sun, promising to support, respect, and love each other no matter what obstacles might come their way. Ada's heart swelled as she realized that the journey from Otuocha to Lekki had brought her not only opportunity, but a love that was unwavering and true. After the ceremony, they stood together on the balcony, overlooking the city that once seemed vast, impersonal, and intimidating. The lights of Lagos sparkled like stars reflected in water. Tunde held Ada close. "Do you remember our first night on this balcony?" he asked softly. "I was nervous, you were nervous, and yet we knew something important had begun." Ada laughed, the sound light and musical. "I remember. I was terrified. And you were calm, but I think you were just as scared as I was." He kissed her forehead gently. "And yet, here we are, together, against all odds." Their story, once whispered and questioned by many, became a quiet legend among those who knew it. A tale of courage, humility, and love that refused to be constrained by class or prejudice. Ada had come from a small village with little more than faith, determination, and honesty, and she had built a life filled with respect, joy, and partnership. Tunde had learned that love is not measured by wealth or status, but by character, courage, and the willingness to fight for what truly matters. As night fell, Ada and Tunde stood hand in hand on the balcony, the soft hum of Lagos below them like a lullaby. They watched as the city's lights flickered and danced, the endless river of cars and people moving through the streets. "We did it," Ada whispered, leaning against him. Tunde smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. "Yes, Ada, and we will continue to do it, together, every day." In that moment, they understood something profound. Love, when honest and fearless, could overcome the shadows of doubt, the fires of judgment, and the weight of society's expectations. It could thrive even in the busiest, loudest, most unforgiving city, as long as hearts remained steadfast. And so their story ended, not with struggle or sorrow, but with laughter, joy, and a future built on love's enduring truth.